Hey, Bomb Squad. If you're a comedian or a podcaster looking for an affordable website solution with a modern look, then we recommend Puck's Hub. With a Puck's Hub website, you can set up your new website in minutes with easy-to-use pre-built templates. Puck's Hub websites are customizable and can easily be integrated with other platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. The best part? Puck's Hub plans are only $5 per month. We use Puck's Hub for our website at the Art of Bombing podcast, and we think you should too. That's why we've partnered with Puck's Hub to offer listeners a free 60-day trial. Head over to puckshub.com to subscribe and use promo code AOBPOD at checkout for your 60-day free trial, and then pay only $5 per month after that. Take your career to the next level with your own Puck's Hub website today.
Dan Bublitz Comedy Productions.
That's a long way to go, man. That's what's coming up on the Art of Bombing episode 272.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Art of Bombing. It is me, your host, Dan Bublitz Jr. With me, as always, well, I should say most of the time. There's been a couple times he wasn't here, but as always,
you keep saying that there's a couple of times that it's been like a while. Like
it has
you're
been
gonna
a
have
long
to
while.
go. You got to go download a lot of episodes to find the last time I wasn't here.
Yeah, the last time you weren't here, you went to the Congo. So
it's right. It was an important mission. I mean, I was looking for like megafauna.
I thought it had something to do with you were trying to murder your mom or something. I don't remember. It was wild.
That was a different episode.
Oh,
you know?
See, even I can't remember. It's been so long ago.
I don't know. Yeah, well, then go back and listen to the show, Dan.
Okay.
What? Stop. I'll wait while
you wait. Okay.
I'll wait while you go back and listen to the episode.
Okay, I listened to the episodes.
All right.
You were right. I was wrong. I apologize. Yeah. It's been a very long time.
Glad we got that sorted out.
Congo was a different mission than what the episode where I thought you went to murder your mom or something.
Well,
it's all
speaking of not doing things. Look, let me tell you about something that happened to me on Thursday.
Well, first I gotta finish this intro. With me as always is my co-host, cohort company.
They know I'm here now. What? They know I'm here. We've been talking about me being here for like 60 seconds. Like I
couldn't go without introducing you.
Okay, but I'm in. Like we're in the house. Like we walked through the door. We're here. Like I don't even need to go back out again and come back in.
So what happened to you? What's this craziness that happened to you
on Thursday? Well, it's really built up now, so it's not going to be as cool as if like I could have just stepped right into it. But I was supposed to go to Chicago for work on Thursday, and so the plane was going to take off at 5:50 in the morning.
Okay, so I was just going to ask in the morning or in the evening? Okay,
I got up at 3:30, and it's lightning and thunder outside, and I checked the app, and it's like, yep, plane's still taking off. Be sure you're here on time. I'm like, dude. So I get my stuff together. I drive to the airport, So, how everybody, I mean, most people listening to this have done that before. Like you're in a car, you're airport, bus, whatever. You get there, gate, check in, security, find place, sit down, get some coffee, get on the plane. I'm on the plane. About, 20 minutes in, captain comes on and says, hey guys, as you can see, it's raining outside with a lot of lightning. I don't know when we're going to leave. And just like without boring you with a lot more details, 2 hours later, I'm still sitting on this same plane. And I was we haven't left. And the whole reason I was flying to Chicago just for that day was to go to a meeting that I was going to have in the morning. And I was going to arrive there 2 or 3 hours before I needed to be there. But by the time like you add all this time in, I was only going to be there for 45 minutes, and it was like a half day situation where I was going to be teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so I texted my boss, and I'm like, hey, at this point, like I'm only going to be there for the last 30 minutes. So how about I just not go? And he's like, okay. So I got off the plane. They had opened the door, which turns like that changes the rules when you're flying, like, and they open the door. Like the plane is now part of the airport, and you can get up and you can walk off the plane. You can go try to make other travel plans, get rerouted to your destination. And people were doing that. So I did that, got off. I talked to the little guy, and he was like, hey, cool. I'll just, put it in the system that you're off. And I went and talked to the lady at the counter, and they gave me a refund. Not a refund, but they let me use the credits. I got back and did everything in reverse and went back home.
So you just went you didn't even fly to Chicago. You just went and got on a plane and then sat there for a while, got off that same plane. And
it was like it was practice for something. Like
you were rehearsing a scene in a movie.
Yeah. Like, okay, look, we're going to get, this is what it's like. You get on the plane, and I think they ought to do this for people who, like, you're standing behind them in the security line and like, come on, man, get your stuff together. Like the people who don't travel that often should have to do what I did, but like as a planned mandatory traveler, like in order to get
traveler training,
your traveler badge, you have to go through and do what I did, which was helpful to me because in Kansas City, they totally changed their airport, and it was my first time going to the airport. So in a way, it helped me be more efficient for everybody next time. Like, so I got there, I'm trying to put a positive spin on it. I got there and I figured out where the lines were, where security is, how to get through, where the coffee is, where the gate is, where, park, all those things.
And so now next time when you actually have to fly somewhere, or hopefully get to fly, you'll go back to that airport and you'll know where everything is. So it'll be easy peasy.
Yeah, agreed. Agreasy.
That's amazing. At least you didn't it wasn't a situation where they did take off and you still weren't going to make it to the meeting. So you would have to just get back on a flight and come back. Because when you told me this happened, that's what I thought happened.
Yeah. No.
Still, that's a wild day. What a day. Just spent half your day at the airport, essentially.
It did.
Makes for a long day, too. Traveling is tough. Makes for a long day.
Even when you're not traveling, like, it's really hard on you.
Yeah. Well, just going to the airport is exhausting.
Yeah,
you got to be around all those people.
I think we figured it out. It's not the traveling. It's like all the other crap that happens beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Well, and we're going to get into this episode now. We have a great episode today. We have AJ Finney on the show.
Yes.
Fantastic comedian from your neck of the woods, actually.
Yeah.
Now
AJ and I have not met in person. And in fact, if I emailed him right now, he wouldn't know who the email was coming from.
No, well, that's okay. I mean, if you emailed me now, I probably wouldn't know who it was coming from.
Yeah, it's not saying much.
But no, we had a fantastic conversation with AJ. He is from Kansas City. He lives here in the Denver area now, which is cool. I actually met him years ago. He is one of the original alumni from Snow Jam. He is the first class of the Snow Jam Comedy Festival alumni. Nice. He did our festival the very first year we did that one. And so excited that he was, we were able to have him come on the podcast. We had a great conversation, which we talk a lot about. There's a lot of stuff that come up, a lot of themes and things that we're going to be talking about in that callbacks episode that's going to come out on Thursday as well. We're going to talk about, your own perception of your set and magnifying that. We talk about comedians in the back of the room not laughing at your set. And we talk about confidence, because those are all things that are very important, and they all kind of tie in together, as you will find out when you listen to the callbacks episode. But again, if you listen to this conversation with AJ and you enjoy this conversation with AJ and you happen to be in the Kansas City area, you should go see him. He's going to be headlining the Comedy Club of Kansas City, June 8th through the 10th. So I would definitely go see him if you can. And that's your chance, Josh,
that's my chance.
Go to one of those shows and meet him. And then he'll know who you are if you send him an email.
He'll listen to this episode before then. So AJ, I'm going to email you and we'll hang out or something. But big fan of AJ. I've been following him for a while. I've been doing comedy here for a long time, I definitely know a lot of people who know him really well. And this was a great episode that I had circled for a while, and not only for the reasons we've discussed, but also just because it was such a great episode and I learned a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're going to strap in. You're about to learn some stuff. Before we get to that conversation, real quick, just want to let everybody know we will be doing an Art of Bombing live at the Chief Comedy Festival down in Trinidad, Colorado on May 5th at 3 p.m. You can go to their website to find out more information. If you're in the area, if you're a comedian that's traveling to that festival and you listen to this podcast, it would be great to have you come and watch the podcast. I'm not looking for guests. I want to put that out there. The festival has already booked guests for the show, but that's going to be a great episode because it's going to be great because on the live episodes, comedians they're going to do a 10-minute set, and then I'm going to talk to each of them for 10 minutes about, they're going to tell me their bombing story, and we're going to talk a little bit about their bombing story live on stage and in front of hopefully a live audience, and it's going to be amazing. And just a little teaser, I guess, is that that's also going to be our 6-year anniversary show. So we're releasing that for the 6-year anniversary, which is coming up in a couple weeks. Pretty amazing.
Yes. And I won't be on that one, Dan. So you can say with me as, you know what? He missed another one.
Well,
Truancy
not
Josh.
necessarily, because we can still do the intro for that. You just won't, we'll just have to set it up that it's going to be a weird intro because we're introing a show that'll have an intro because it was filmed live.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to be a good time.
Guys. Good times.
Yeah, good times. All right. Let's get in this conversation with AJ. Make sure you follow the show wherever you listen to the show. You can find us online, Art of Bombing Pod, on all social media platforms. Check out the website, artofbombingpod.com. We're on a new platform. We're using Pucks Hub now as our web host. It's an easy web application to build a website, mainly for comedians and podcasters. A lot of easy peasy templates to set up. If you decide that you want to check it out and set up your own website, use promo code AOBPOD and you'll get a 60-day free trial. And then after that, it's only 5 days a month. So go over there, set up your site if you've been looking for a cheap alternative to build a website. All right, that's enough business. Let's get in this conversation with AJ. Enjoy.
And now it's time for the stand-up soundbite.
I was in Laughlin, Nevada, which if you've never been there is kind of where fun goes to die. Now, I only say that because a friend of mine falsely sent me in. I told him, I was like, I got a gig in Laughlin. And he goes, oh, dude, that's just like Las Vegas. Yeah, me and that guy, not fucking friends anymore. That's how that works, right? And I was in Laughlin. At the end of the week, a girl came up to me after one of the shows and said this, verbatim. She just goes, if you shaved your head, you'd be awfully hot. Oh. Yeah, if you didn't have a mouth, you'd be awfully polite. Like, I don't understand how human beings interact. It's funny, I wished I would have said it. I didn't. I thought about it later. What I actually heard myself say was, hey, thanks. You ever do that? Attitude of gratitude really fuck you? I just didn't hear everything she said. Like, you ever do that where you just hear the words that make you seem good? Like, I heard her say you and hot and was like, fuck right. You gotcha. Now, not often does your attacker reapproach, but guess who got a boomerang? This dude. Her friends got mad at her because of what she had said, so she came back and her friend said, I guess she was like, hey, I don't want you to take what I said the wrong way. My friends are upset. So all I was trying to explain to you is that I personally could never date a man with a hairline like yours. That's it. Well, thank you for coming back over here, Mother Teresa. Putting a little flutter in my heart, huh? But that shows what you know. Right? This is the hairline of a man who will go down and stay down on a woman for an adequate amount of time. That's what that is. That didn't fall out. It was rubbed the fuck off. How about that? So maybe you want to think about that, ladies, before you go offending another man who has a purple heart and cunnilingus. Yeah, this guy knows what I'm talking about. What's happening? All right, that guy. I don't know if he was happy about it or he was like, all right, I'll take it for a test spin outside. All right, you're holding on. Shouldn't have talked to you.
It's the art of bombing.
Dude, I have the Mork and Mindy where you pulled the string and he goes nanu nanu. I have that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that was a gift from a friend. He was like, because he knows. So, you can see, because you're in the studio, you can see I collect a lot of things. A lot of the toys and like, especially like the Funko Pops and stuff that I collect, a lot of it's like comedy related stuff.
Okay.
So it's like either from like comedy shows or things that comedians might have played or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he knew that I kind of collected that kind of stuff. So anytime he sees stuff like that, he's like, "Oh, Dan will like this." Like the Pale Force DVD over there.
Oh, wow.
That same friend found that at a thrift store or something. And he was like, "Oh, Dan would love this." So,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so that's cool. But the more that's like one of the best gifts I've gotten.
Dude, that's so wild. Yeah, mine was actually a gift as well. Someone got it for me for, I think it was my birthday one year.
Oh,
and he
that's
just
awesome.
knew that I enjoyed the show. It came out at the same time I was born, and I enjoyed Robin Williams for what it was worth. And
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And I also collect comedy memorabilia type stuff, like from like comics I know. So like all that stuff behind me where that is, that a lot of that is like merch and trinkets that I've gotten from other comedians.
Oh,
or
Andy Erickson.
Yeah.
She's great.
Oh, Andy's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stuff that I've gotten from other comedians I kind of have back there and throughout the room. So
Nice.
yeah, it's always good. I got the other thing that I really love too is the Jess from Solar Opposites, which is Mary Mac's character.
Oh, yeah.
And then she signed it. So it's
she's
awesome.
great.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Good people.
Super good for someone with ADD. This is a wonderful space.
Yeah, I know. It gets a little crazy. I had Dan Jones in here a while back, and he kept getting distracted. He just like looking around and trying to stay focused, but he was just like, he would see something new.
That's great.
It's like, it's a great space for where I work and do it, but yeah, you're right. Somebody with ADD is going to be like, what the?
Yeah, you're like, I remember, I know. What about that question? That's cool. Oh, action figures.
Exactly. You just nailed a lot of the conversations that take place in the studio.
That's great.
That's amazing. Have you done any shows this week, or were you on the road at all last weekend?
Let's see. No, I've actually had a couple of weeks off, finishing up
sometimes that's
some editing for the album and stuff like that. And that's it.
And I know we'll talk more about that, but just as long as you brought it up, you got another album coming out. What album is this number?
Third
album.
Yeah, third
Wow,
album. So
that's
I
amazing.
released one in 2021, and then so this will be the third one. So closer proximity. Mm-hmm. And then I'm already starting to work on the third or the fourth.
Wow,
like,
that's
material wise. Like,
wow.
But I recorded 90 minutes for that album.
Oh wow!
And so, when I went
lot,
through the editing, I whittled down to 55.
Mm-hmm.
And so down to 55, and that left me some stuff that I was like, this could still use some work, and so I cut that out.
Yeah, and I did similar when I recorded my album. I did 2 recordings. They ended up both being a little bit different because I just things happened and went away. So but I ended up one night I did like 70 minutes, and the next night I think I did 75 or so. I don't.
Yeah.
But I ended up same thing. I ended up with like 25 minutes of extra material, or I would same thing. Where I was like, well, for one, I want to keep this album under an hour because nobody wants to go listen to an hour and a half album, And I was like, well, now I have a half hour head start on the next.
Right.
And I got something to work on.
And it's nice because some of this stuff maybe was newer, and you're just working on it, and you go, hey, does this follow the theme? Can I pull this out? And I had stuff in this one that I, was okay, but that I left in because it all had to do with COVID and my wife and I being locked in together. And I was like, well, that's not going to hold for long. I mean, that's got a shelf life.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You got to get it out there.
So.
Do you, when you're working on a project like this, when you're thinking about, because obviously when you're thinking about your comedy, you're thinking about albums because you just said you're editing number 3 and already thinking about number 4.
Yeah.
So we can tell that that's kind of the way your brain works with this. Do you, when you're working on creating a project or you're working on your next album, do you try to give it some kind of a theme or where it has like a through line, or is it just, well, this is the material, this is the hour, whatever it is?
Yeah. So it's interesting. The last 2 albums, the title has been the last bit. I don't know why. I don't know why I did it that way. But yeah, I kind of wanted to have a through line. Like the last one, when I broke it down, there were almost 2 albums, 2 completely different albums at 45-minute marks. Like there was one that was like comedy related, joke, a little long form. And then around the 46-minute mark, the next big chunk was long form stories involving like where I came from, my family. And that was the stuff I wanted on there for sure. I can't imagine Sirius is going to love it. I mean, the last 2 tracks, one's 12 and a half minutes and the other's 15 and a half.
Oh my God, just the tracks?
Just the tracks.
Wow. Yeah. I think my longest track was like 5 or 6 minutes. And even that, I was like, can I cut this anymore? Like, can I make this 2 tracks?
Yeah. And you know, maybe they can cut it up to give bits and pieces of it. It's just that amount of time all kind of started with a theme and ended with a theme. And then there were all these jokes in between.
Nice.
You know,
and now for your latest album, is this like a self-produced thing, or is it produced through a company?
Oh yeah, Helium.
Oh, Helium.
Yeah, so the
nice.
last 2 albums were done with Helium.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen with the third one. I kind of am now at a point where I'd like to film something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, right.
Because some of the stuff, I cut some of the stuff out of the album because I was like, oh, that doesn't make sense because they can't see it.
Yeah. And that's a good point, though. That's something that I feel like because I've listened to like comedy albums and stuff where you hear that where they're you can tell they're doing something physically because the crowd's responding,
right? But
it makes no sense in this audio format.
Yeah.
It's not to the listener.
Yeah, I feel like didn't Mitch have a joke about that?
He might have.
I feel like there was a joke where he goes, "I'm going to do a whole bunch of jokes that you had to be here to see." And or something, I can't remember, but it sounds like a Mitch thought, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe it was, oh man, I think it was just that he goes, "I'm going to do a whole bunch of jokes that bomb, but then I'm going to edit in your laughter and make you look silly."
Oh yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. Oh, love it. Yeah, one of the greats for sure.
Yeah,
silly and weird, great. But going in, talking a little bit more about your album, just in the production. So you said the first 2 were Helium, or is this one Helium too?
First one was with Uproar.
Oh,
actually.
okay,
yeah,
okay.
And that was so.
Yeah, and that's sad. I don't know. Did you hear about that?
I heard Dave passed.
Yeah.
So we recorded that. That released in 2012. So from 2012 to 2021. There's a pretty big gap.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's a lot of time for material.
Yeah. So
a lot of time for development.
Yeah. And so, we put that together. And some of it, too, was like COVID was happening, and I had these things, and I was like, I'm just going to put this together. And so the album was almost already done when I handed it to Helium. It's kind of like a handshake deal. I'm like, we'll do this, and then we'll do the next one. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I tried to get them to produce mine. Well, I'd already recorded it, and then somebody put me in contact with them, and it didn't work out. Not because they weren't necessarily interested; they just got overloaded with all their own projects. They didn't have time to really like sit down and listen to the album to see whether or not they'd be interested, and I didn't want to keep waiting. You know, it was a situation where like, you know, we'd love to listen to it, but we're just really busy right now. We understand if you don't want to wait, you know, that kind of thing. And I was like, I don't. I appreciate the being honest.
Yeah, 100%. I would much rather, because throughout my career, I've spoken to lots of people, and I've had great conversations and was hopeful with a lot of them. I mean, Dan at Stand Up was one. Yep. And I still love that dude.
Oh yeah, he's great,
and his roster's great.
Yep. He listened to my album too. He actually listened to it and turned it down, which was great. I mean, he listened to it. He took the time to do it
for sure. And then 800 Pound. I was talking to those guys for a little while. Right now, as far as big labels that I didn't speak with, I think Blonde Medicine was the only one I didn't talk to. So I guess that means I'm coming for you.
You're next. You're next. I didn't even realize. Actually, it's a funny thing you bring them up. I didn't realize who they were until last night, talking with Adam Newman, who's in town, because he mentioned, because he had a vinyl, and I bought it. And I saw that the vinyl was produced by Stand Up Records, but he said the original album was released through them. He originally said Rooftop Comedy, and I was like, I thought Rooftop Comedy was no more. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, they aren't. I guess they turned into Blonde Medicine. I think.
Yeah, because they kind of split. Because I think one of the guys, Dan, that used to work for Rooftop, also went over to 800 Pound. So there's this weird partnership split.
Yeah, I don't know all the details. I didn't. But what I learned is that Blonde Medicine is what used to be Rooftop, essentially. Man. So according to him, I remember Rooftop.
Oh yeah, I remember sending in clips, going, "What do you think? Oh, I hope I get up there."
Yeah, get on the website. Put me on the website.
It was wild. Yeah, they seem like a good company. They were at High Plains, and they were speaking when they had their little meet and greet thing.
Oh yeah, cool. So, like little panels and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they've put out some people that I highly respect too. There you go, AJ. Way to go. I respect these people. Hey, let's forget all of their names.
It's always like on the spot, but they have, because like I said, talking with Adam yesterday, he mentioned that because he was talking about how a couple weeks ago he shot a special, and they produced it because they're starting to produce specials in addition to albums, and he said they did one for Brian Posehn. So he was like somebody that they had done a special for.
Posehn, I think Mike Kaplan just did a special with them. And Ryan Singer is another one. I think he might have done two things. I think Free Love was through Blonde Medicine also.
Okay, yeah. So I just never heard of him until yesterday. So now I know.
Yeah.
Another company to harass so they won't produce my shit. It's always good to have options.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I think Andy Main also released. Is it I think her album is called Magpie or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. I have her vinyl. Yeah, like I said, I try to collect. Well, I try to collect comedy type stuff, but more so not like obscure, like vintage or whatever. It's like I collect trinkets from comedians. Yeah, so it's like, especially if they have vinyl, because I like vinyl. So and I already kind of collect vinyl comedy albums.
Did you see Brad Wenzel just released a vinyl?
I have not. No.
That doesn't help, but I think I have his original on vinyl, but the new one, I think it's like Joke or something like that, and he released it on vinyl.
Oh, nice.
Looks cool.
Yeah,
it's affordable. It's like a $20 purchase.
Yeah, well, it is, and that's like, that's something I wanted to do for my album, was I wanted to put it on vinyl, and I just didn't. It just wasn't financially possible.
Yeah,
after everything was said and done, I was like, I just can't take that risk.
Yeah, if I can do it. So I did CDs with Colorado Cactus Seat, which was my second album, and people will still buy it. And I did make it a collaboration of art between my words being on the CD. A friend of mine did a mandala of a cactus on the actual disc. So then her art. Jeff Tice did the album cover art, and everything was tied into Colorado. Oh. Even the whole manufacturing of it was at Denver Disc Company, and they did a fantastic job. So, but even still, like, CDs are a hard thing to move anymore.
They really are.
Might as well be VHS tapes.
Even download cards are, I feel like, sometimes are kind of hard to sell after a show, because people are like, well, why would I buy your album when I can just go listen to it for free?
Right. But that's where vinyl comes in, because that's a niche thing. Yep. And vinyl's been around forever. It'll still be around. Yep. And it's that tangible thing of holding it.
And it looks cool. Vinyl,
dude,
vinyl just looks cool. It's cooler than because it's so much bigger than a CD. So especially if you have good album artwork on it, it just looks so nice on the cover of a vinyl. Yeah, and that's what is when Adam set up his merch last night, and I saw that. Like, the first thing I noticed was his vinyl, and it was because of the artwork on it. Yeah. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Which one is it? Do you remember?
I don't remember the name of the album, but it has like a devil thing on it,
and he's like hunched over.
Yes.
Okay, I have that one.
Yeah, I can't remember the name.
But that one was put out by Stand Up, right?
So the
vinyl was
originally. So it ended up being a collaboration. So he said, this is what Adam said, and I could have misheard him. So don't take my full word on this. But he said From what I remember from the conversation, he said it was Rooftop, and that's how we got into that conversation, that it was actually Blonde Medicine, and then they didn't do vinyls, and so he ended up getting them to work together so that worked with Stand Up Records. So Stand Up Records, I believe, put out the vinyl. The actual CD was put out by Blonde Medicine.
Okay.
I picked up right what we were talking about.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different formats now. I think the coolest thing I've seen is if you have the album and then there's a download card inside it. So they buy the album and then they can download that.
Yep. That's a lot of the newer vinyls do that too. And even, Adam gave me a download card too.
Yeah.
With that. He's like, here, I'm going to throw in a download card for you.
Yeah.
Or he said it was in there if I wanted it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, that's another good thing because you can do that same thing. Then they get that tangible object that looks cool. And then if they're not into listening to vinyl, they can go listen to it on their computer or whatever.
Yeah. And that's what I would like to do that with my new one. But the formatting is completely different too. And that was the whole thing with a 90-minute. If I just was like, let's release it, it's going to be like, it's absolutely 2 albums, because your cut is different.
Yep. Well, and especially if you have tracks that are 15 minutes long.
Yeah, I mean that's my last 2 tracks.
That's like one almost a whole side of an album.
Yeah, absolutely. My last 2 tracks are definitely side B.
They're their own disc. They're their own. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, but that'd still be neat. That's one thing. I mean. It didn't work out for this one, but the next one maybe, get to do a vinyl.
And I think it's getting a little bit easier to do that too.
It is.
When Colorado Cactus Seat came out, I talked to the company and they're like, we can do vinyl. You just need to understand that it's kind of expensive, and with shipping delays right now, we're probably about 6 to 7 months out. And I was like, I don't want to wait that long.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a long wait. Especially because, wait that long, and then by the time you get it, people are past that. You're like ready to record the next one.
Right. This is my new album, but I have a surplus of my old album. Purchase that, please. I'm hungry.
That's pretty much comedy right there.
Right.
We're not here to tell jokes.
Right.
We're here to sell our wares so we can get lunch afterwards.
Right. I got a re-release of the String Cheese Incident's 2000 release, Inside Outside, and it was a pre-order, and I got it. And when it came in, what blew my mind was when I flipped it over and it said "Made in the Czech Republic," and I was like, man, those guys have a lot lot going on right now. But they're like, vinyl will survive. My nephew might not, but this vinyl, the people need their cheese.
Yeah, you heard it here. Just get the vinyls. They're going to outlast everything.
Right.
I mean, realistic. They've been around for a long time. So
yeah, dude. Somebody one time gave me an old. I cannot remember what it's called, so this story is going to be awesome. But it's the old box that you set up, and it's a crank.
Oh, like a xylophone type, or
kind of. It's got the horn.
Okay,
but the record is like a wooden record or something like this thick. You know what I'm talking about? It's like an Edison or something.
Yep.
So I have one of those, and I have 2 albums, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with them. But the guy was like, it was so wild and so nice. The guy just goes, "Oh, you're talking about how you like vinyl, and I had this. Do you want it?" And I was like, this is insane. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but
sure,
I can't say no.
Yeah, right. It's too nice. I can't say no.
So
that's awesome. That's a cool thing to have, though. My dad's a big music guy and always has been, and he's got thousands of vinyls. It's insane. Half of his, in the house that I grew up where he still lives, there's a top floor where his bedroom always was, but it's like a whole, almost like a half attic type thing, but it's the whole size of the house. So it's a big bedroom, but only half of it is his bedroom. The other half is where he has all his music stuff or whatever. Oh. And there's just a big spot on the floor where he's got all his vinyl stacked. And there's just 4 or 5 rows that just go.
Is it the milk crates? Is he
no?
Milk crated?
They're just no. He just has them stacked.
Yeah,
just stacked in rows. He probably can't even get to some of them because you got the ones that are start in the corner of the house. They're too far over. He ain't getting over there to get that. If he wants something over there, he's going to do some rearranging is what's going to happen.
So I have a problem with stuff like that. It's nice to talk to someone who collects things.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have several albums that have never been opened. And so I've not listened to them. And Marciana's always like, why do you do that? And then I realized it went into my clothing. Like I would get a concert t-shirt and never wear it. And so, and she was like, where's this? And I have like these batik. And I was like, I just don't know how to wash them. And she's like, how do you not know how to wash them? I was like, they're going to bleed. And
I'm laughing at that because you're speaking my language. T-shirts.
Yeah.
You're talking about, I'll buy t-shirts from like comedians and just whatever. Sometimes it's even just nerdy stuff. And I'm like, I just don't want to wear it. I don't want to ruin it. Yeah. And so like I collect t-shirts. I have a closet full of t-shirts I never wear. Dude. And then you said hats. I don't know if you saw behind you.
Oh yeah.
Those are ones that I just don't wear very often. Yeah. I have downstairs in the closet that by our entry, I have 2 hat racks on the inside of the door that have like, I don't know, like 10, 15 hats that I wear on a rotation that are just there. I like to have them accessible so they're in that closet. So yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, God, so rough. I have one of my prized possessions of things I've never worn is in 2005, I saw George Carlin at the Paramount. I drove from Kansas City out to Denver, saw him, and I had tickets to the Late Show. And by the time the Late Show started, his merch was obliterated. And so one of the only things left was a shirt that had like all of his dirty words on it. And it was, I think, an extra large. Didn't fit, but I definitely wanted to go home with something. And now it's just folded up. And Marciana's like, you should do something with it. And I was like, yeah, what, frame it? Like, that's the only thing I can think to do.
Frame it, hang it up. Yeah.
Can't get rid of it. Like, not
no,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, it'd be like seeing Pryor or something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You just can't get rid of something like that. Not at all. Yeah. It's funny because I have shirts like that too. Not as that rare, but like I have a shirt. I don't think I've ever worn it. And now it's too big, actually. But I volunteered at Comic-Con in San Diego one year, and they gave all the volunteers a limited edition volunteer shirt or whatever. So it's like limited to that year, and that so it's numbered or whatever Comic-Con it was or whatever. But I've never worn it. Yeah. And I never will. I'm like, oh, this is just cool.
Yeah.
It's folded up in a tote in my closet. Yeah.
And I will say this because I don't want them to stop because I have great fans that do this and it blows my mind. But my fans cross over into the jam band community a lot and they know about my passions there. And 3 different times I've had people bring me limited edition like prints from concerts. And they're like, yeah, my wife's having me clean this out, or I have 2 of these. Would you like it? And I was like, I never say no to those prints.
Oh, right. No doubt.
You know,
Do you hang them up then?
Yeah, my wife had a very adamant thing when she goes, we can put posters on the wall, but they have to be framed. And now I am running out of wall space, and I had to buy a portfolio.
Oh, to have them so you can like look through them. Yeah.
Yep. And it's weird because now it's like baseball cards where occasionally you'll rearrange. I'll look at the frames and I go, maybe I have a more spring posters I want to. Like I'm trying to sound like an adult and not just like, these are my things I want other people to see. It's like I'm rearranging and people come in.
But it's so hard not to sound that.
And nobody outside of me, like they come to my house and they may have been there several times and I go, is anyone going to notice I put a new poster up?
Yeah, right. It's funny too because like I don't know how it is for you, but I don't have like a lot. I mean, I have people come over for to record the podcast, but I don't have like a lot of like company because we don't have a lot of friends here because we're new to the area or whatever. Yeah. But it's like I don't even have anybody to come over that would be able to notice if I rearranged, outside of my fiance, and she's not going to care what I do with my studio. But like the other day, I had Thomas Nichols was in the studio recorded, and I noticed he was looking at all my toys, all my action figures, and I noticed I was like, oh man, I really need to dust. And he's like, and when I said that, he was like, oh no, I totally get it. And he's like, black is the best shelves to display stuff like this, but it shows the dust. Yeah, it just collects. But I was looking at it and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to rearrange all this because if I go through the work to take these all off to clean, just so well rearrange it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I gotta go through and clean it, I just change it up a little.
This is embarrassing. I get so emotionally attached to these things too, where like if I have one that's been sitting in the back row for a while, I'll go, all right, well, it's your turn. You're going to go to the front. We're just, let's be fair. They're
Rotate
toys.
it. Yeah, I know.
They're toys.
And nobody cares. Oh, I love it. Oh my God. Yeah, we're on the same level, friend. We're on the same level. It's hard to act like an adult when you
yeah.
or be taken serious like an adult.
Yeah, it is one of those things, and people find out, and as like a term of endearment, they bring you more things.
Yep, they're like, "Oh, you like this thing? Well, here you go."
My father-in-law said it so much about they found out he really liked Volkswagens, and he goes, "I bought him like 3 things. Everything else in my life, people have given me." Puzzles, posters, belt buckles, like whatever, everything.
Oh, absolutely. And that's not just like with like collectibles or toys. Like I see that with my fiance's. She loves animals and wildlife and dogs. And for the longest time, German Shepherds were her favorite dogs. And every Christmas, her mom would give her a bunch like calendars that were German Shepherd and like things related to that one thing that she liked.
Yeah, and it's wild. It's also fascinating to me how many times people like regular, I don't want to say alpha bros, but like dudes, like a traditional Midwestern dude. I will talk about that stuff and they go, I just don't understand. You waste so much money on these posters and concerts. I don't understand why you care. And I was like, oh yeah, you like sports?
Yep, exactly.
And I didn't put that connection together until in Florida, I went to a Tampa Buccaneers game. And when we were there, we were walking around in the parking lot, and I was like, oh, this is a Grateful Dead show for football. Like, that's all it is.
It's exactly it. It's funny. I was in Montana last weekend helping my cousin with a project, and he's a big football fan, and so much so that his plumbing company has sponsored an indoor football league, and that was part of the reason I was up there was to help him because he's doing some. He has a streaming or not a streaming show, but he has a segment thing that he does for a sports network.
Gotcha. I was hoping you were the quarterback.
Yeah, I went up there. That's why I went up there. I'm getting drafted to be
crushing pigskin,
being on this indoor football league. That's my new thing. I'm like, comedy. Yeah. I'm not making any money in comedy, so why not go make no money playing semi-professional sports?
Yeah. I can throw this ball wall to wall.
Exactly. Well, I was funny because we were talking about that because he's a big football fan, and I was trying to get him to come out to meet some friends of mine or whatever. He's like, oh, no, I want to watch this game. There was an indoor football game on with one of the teams that he's involved with, so he wanted to watch the game. But his whole man cave just covered in 49ers, posters, cards, everything, just the whole wall. And him and I were talking about that, where he was like, yeah, I get it. Because he knows I'm big into comic books and toys and stuff like that. And he's like, it's pretty much the same thing, just with sports. Even he realizes it as a sports fan.
It should be the common ground that bonds bully and bullied. Yep. Like, that's it. You're both associating different things, and you all have obsessions. Like, at some point, everybody is a nerd on something. Even if it's lifting weights.
Oh, yeah, exactly. No,
right?
And there are people that are like, they go, that's their thing. They go every day. They're reading magazines on it and, articles or whatever. That's what being a nerd on something is.
I'm a nerd on roids. Well, I don't know. You're aggressive. I don't know if that's really...
Like, if you start going and doing research to learn more about a thing that you really enjoy so you can get better or more into said thing, you're a geek.
Right.
Whether you want to admit it or not.
As soon as you hear yourself go, oh, I'm loaded with just worthless information.
Exactly.
And I've always thought about that. Like, a plumber is a plumbing geek. Like, when you go, well, that's not going to fit. I'll tell you why it's not going to fit. You need an H2 wrench. And you go, all right, already too much for me.
Yeah. That's amazing. Oh, man. Wow. We're already a half hour in. This has been amazing. We need to talk about some bombing. We're going to run out of time just nerding out, which I would be fine with. But the listeners of the podcast are probably like, are they going to get to the actual... Like, did this podcast change? Is this a comedy podcast or is this a nerd podcast?
Yeah, anyone who knows me is going to go, oh, this is traditional AJ, just long-winded.
Well, and anybody that knows me is going to be like, oh, the guest likes talking about nerdy stuff. Dan's there. So much for this being about comedy.
Yeah, I was in Parker, Colorado last week, and I did a show, and I don't know why I said this thing about, I was like talking about a show I had done in South Dakota where an elderly woman approached me afterwards, and I don't know why my brain did this, but I was like, yeah, after the show, this elderly woman approached me, and I looked at another elderly woman that was there, and I was like, she wasn't trying to fight me or anything. I was like, I don't know why I said that. I was like, that it seems like I got afraid while looking at you, and the woman put her fist up, and I was like, holy moly. I was like, it's weird. I was like, as if anybody in the audience was going to go, oh yeah, you know AJ Finney. You know what he's known for? Just running the light and fighting the elderly.
Oh my God! Now I just want to see you brawling with elderly people after shows.
Just you could
That's
just
like the bonus that's the Patreon content right there.
yeah. You smell like just been gay, and they're just cracking, and I'm like, there it goes. I'm in trouble. I could take one, but 14's a lot.
They actually know how to fight.
Right. Is that an original leather jacket from the West Side Story? Like. I know you're going to beat me up, but I know someone who would collect that.
It's me. I would collect that. Can I have your jacket?
Yeah.
If I let you punch me, can I have the jacket?
Come on, Fonzie.
That's going to look great next to my whatever.
Yeah. It'll look great anywhere.
I'm going to frame that and put it on the wall.
Yeah. We're out of wall space. It looks great on the back of a chair.
It's just like, do you ever wear that? No, that's just that's a chair decoration.
Yeah. Do you know how bad that chair looks without that leather jacket? Do you know how much this is worth? The chair?
No, the jacket. The chair's not worth shit.
Yeah.
I spent all the money on the jacket.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford an actual chair. Like
well, what are you doing with it? It's over there in case I have to pay the mortgage.
Exactly. That's funny too, because I always joke with my fiance about this, because her friends, it's all in good fun, but they give her shit about me being such a big nerd and things like that, because I also collect comic books and stuff like that, and I'm always like, you just wait, when I die, you're gonna just whatever you do, just don't throw it away.
Yeah.
Sell it, and you're gonna be very happy that I did this.
Yeah. There's been several things I've told Marciana. I was like, when I die, you have to put this in wherever I go.
This is coming with me.
This is coming with
but
me.
you can sell all this,
Yeah.
and you'll be surprised at what you're gonna get.
Yeah. Some of those posters I have, it's
I
insane.
Bet. Yeah.
Like traditionally, when you buy them, they're limited run, $60. That's a standard cost of a poster to print. I have one that's at $850 right now.
It's worth $850?
$850.
Wow.
And Zach, my co-host at my podcast, roasted me because I was like, dude, I got this one that's $850. This one's been signed by everyone except the artist. And he goes, oh yeah. And I was like, yeah, dude. And I got another one that's at about $700. And he goes, how about you got any more? And I was like, I got one that's at like $350 and another one that's at like $80. And he goes, you know what? And I was like, what? And he goes, doesn't matter because you're never gonna sell them. And I was like, oh, that hurt. That hurt.
It's like, oh, you're a dick, but simultaneously you're like, oh, and you're right.
Yeah, you know how to cut me, just right to the core.
Just that knife went in and you twisted.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. But let's talk about bombing. I would love to hear one of your stories. You've been doing comedy for a long time, so I'm sure you have lots of fun stories.
I do have. I've got I have 3 that are epic. That I realized with these 3 that had happened, I was always in the same mindset, like not really there. And 2 kind of happened back to back. So I'm going to start with the worst bomb I've ever had. First off, New Jersey. I mean, that's where it happens.
Checks out.
Yeah, I was booked to do a show, and I had never been to New Jersey. I'd only done the East Coast. I did New York. I did Gotham once for an audition for Last Comic. Completely different. My manager got me this thing, and it was at the Tropicana, and it's like a week long. You start on a Monday,
wow,
go through Sunday, and then you have to be out because then Monday the new blood comes in.
Yep.
And something felt off. Like, I'm going to say that. Like, I kind of had that intuitive feel. You know, when you're like, if there's a deal and you just, something in your gut goes, I'm getting fucked. Like, something's weird. But
something doesn't seem right.
Right. Yeah. And I couldn't peg what it was, but I had that feeling. Now, it's also important for you to know. I had quit drinking alcohol 6 months prior. This is in 2014. What I did not know about booze is when you quit, anything that you've been self-medicating eventually just surfaces. So I started having panic attacks.
Oh, no.
Which was not something I was accustomed to, especially when I was boozing. And so anxiety, panic. I was also not eating well. Like, I was copious amounts of sugar to counteract the fact that I wouldn't pour booze in my head.
Yeah.
And then I went from Little Rock, Arkansas. I think I was on the road for a total of like 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And so that's 6 weeks out on the road away from home.
I don't think I've ever done that long of a tour.
That's about the
crazy.
longest I've done.
Wow.
And so you're also kind of feral, spending a lot of time in the car alone.
Yep.
And so I went from when I started noticing I was having like issues was in Little Rock. And because I was like, something doesn't feel right. Then I went from Little Rock to Winston-Salem. And Winston-Salem felt really odd, but it was still okay. Me and this guy went and got mall massages, and I thought that was going to help. And then, like, that's what I was like. And they were like, how about a $30 mall massage? Does it help with panic? And she just went, yes. And I was like, okay, perfect. It doesn't. It doesn't at all.
And then they just sit you in a chair and hit you with elbows.
Yeah, just, are you just throwing bows back there, Glenn Danzig? Yeah. And then from there, I had a few days where I got to stay in the condo, talk to another comic, and kind of have a little bit of a normal life where I was like, oh, maybe I kind of feel like I live here and I'm a part of something. And then I had to leave, and I had to go to Jersey, and then after Jersey, I was going to Boston. And that was the last part of the trip. So in New Jersey, I get there, and there's very little information. I just know there's 3 people on the bill, and what I've been told is, hey, you're opening. And I was like, cool. Maybe this is kind of presumptuous of me or pompous, whatever. But I was like, first night coming into a place, if I'm hosting, I'm just going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm doing like 10, 15 minutes. Okay, not a big deal.
Yeah.
You figure it out. You figure out what the crowd is, and then throughout the week you get it. Also, because I'm hosting, it's really not about me.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I can kind of flop, and it's fine.
Yep.
If I do okay and get my announcements right, solid. And then the next people.
Yep.
So I get there, feeling weird, not terribly comfortable, very anxious, not been sleeping well. So what I realize now is I'm on the verge of like a manic episode. Mm-hmm. So that energy is just coming with me, which is not good. And so I get to the hotel and then or the condo, then I'm wandering around trying to get the feel of the beach and then the whole like casino feel.
Casinos are their own thing too. Like, especially like casino and resorts.
Yeah.
When everything's like in that facility. Like, I did a gig out in California where it's you stay at the casino. It's a casino resort, and they have like everything in there. You don't even have to leave the facility, but like time just ceases to exist. And
yeah,
it's like you're in this like weird other universe.
Yeah.
Definitely doesn't help with your brain juices.
No, not at all. And also like you're just not accustomed to on the East Coast. There's a hardness that they carry, and from the Midwest, we're not accustomed to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, it's just as easy as like when you nearly bump into someone, this is a very Midwestern thing I found out where you go, oop, yep, and you make that sound.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, sorry about that. And they don't say sorry. They just have someplace to go and you are in their fucking way. Like that is exactly like, and then there's people under the boardwalk. Like I had like doing drugs and making weird sound, like everything. I was like, I am in a nightmare. Anyway, I get to the show. I meet the guy Bob. I can't remember his last name, and I want to say it was called like Comedy Stop or something like that. And so this night was nearly sold out. And I was like, cool. So I'm hosting, and I knew the guy who was going in the middle, and then the last guy. Well, come to find out, we're all doing the same amount of time.
You're just going first.
Yeah. So I was like,
oh,
what?
Wow. That
This
changes
was-
everything. Too.
Yeah,
Especially
unbeknownst
if
to
you're-
me.
Yeah.
So I was
Wow.
like, so what do you want me to do? And he goes, this is like Canadian, the way it's broke down.
Oh,
He goes,
yep.
you're going to go up and do about 20, maybe 25. Then you'll bring the next guy up. Then you go back out, maybe do 10. And I was like, wait, what? And now I'm starting to freak out because this wasn't clarified to me. Now I'm essentially featuring up front out of the gate, and then I'm doing another short host set and then bringing someone up.
Yep.
And so I'm getting sweaty, and now I'm about to have my first real panic attack. And then he goes, also make sure and get these announcements right. And he gives me a page and a half of stuff. And now I'm just like spiraling. My breath, like my chest is getting tight. And I'm like, it's all right. We've been in this position before. Like, we can do this. Like, all we have to do is get through the first night, because then we're going to have a feel for it. And once we know what it feels like, we can make adjustments necessary for the rest of the week. So I go out. Also, it takes a lot for people on the East Coast to understand vulnerability.
Well, of course, if they're hard,
that
they have no feeling.
Right, right. And you can get
Which means they have no empathy.
right. It's just a whole collection of East Coast older brothers that showed up to the show. Come on, toughen up. So I'm trying to get psyched up, and if I'd have had confidence, so the whole thing is like, if I would have shown some teeth or just been able to prove that I knew what I was doing, it might have been fine. Mm-hmm. But I was like, all right, here comes the announcement. And they have an audio, like a ghost mic recording, and it was the weirdest. Like, it's like, and I was like, all right. And the audience is kind of getting popped, and they're getting psyched. And I was like, all right. And I'm starting to be able to breathe a little bit. And they go, we got a big show for you guys. Oh, and your headliner is this, and your feature, and this and that. He's been seen on this. And I swear, it just changed. It went, now give it up for your first comic, AJ Finney. And I went, what? What just happened? Like, it went from hype man to Valium immediately. And I was like walking out, like I was trying to figure out if I was in fact awake. Like, I was like, this all sounds like I'm having a nightmare. Like, it could just be like,
I'm still at the condo, passed out.
yeah, I've overslept. They're mad. I'm getting fired, but at least this isn't real. And then I go out and I say hello, and they're all, I mean, it's sold out. It's like 250 people, and they're staring, and I'm sweaty, and I'm a pretty animated guy. Like, even with my like voice fluctuation, I don't know what happened. Like, I am now just panicked and frozen. And as that's happening, I'm trying to go through my act. But for those that can see me, like, my arm kind of goes like this. This one goes in the back pocket, thumb in the back pocket, and I just freeze. And I'm doing the act like this. And I'm just going, here we go, and this, and that, and that, and nothing's working. And you know, as a comic, like, after about 3 minutes, you're dead.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
dead.
Even
like,
shorter than that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was told, like, when I started, it's like and I always felt this to be true. When they announce your name and they don't know who you are, as soon as your name is called, someone pushes you underwater. And as soon as you get your first laugh, you can come up and breathe. But so you think about how long it takes to get that first laugh and how long you can be underwater before you die.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm blue. Like, I'm praying for sharks at this point. And yeah, nothing. I mean, to nothing. Like that, I will never forget that. To nothing. And it's not this guy's not funny. They're not angry. I feel like they don't know what's happening, and they are maybe concerned. And the worst part is I'm probably about 15 to 17 minutes into this 20 to 25 minute set that in my head I know is 20. And I remember I'd been on the road and I was watching this live Bob Marley from Santa Monica. And Bob Marley used to do these Rasta prayers at the beginning, and he would hold his hand up and he would just go, Ja Rastafari, hi. And I was like, this is how desperate I was. I was like, oh, dude, the problem is your thumb is here. And, you know, all the energy is in your palm. Like, you're stopping the energy flow. You got to get that hand up. I didn't acknowledge what I was doing. I just went from this, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then I just took this up like this. I did not. There was nothing. I'm just eating solid shit, just solid. And then I just went, yeah, it's almost like, you know, like an action figure. And you go, I'm going to move his arm up like this so he knows halt. And so I'm just up like this. And this gets worse, Dan. It's so much worse. I didn't talk about it, didn't even look at it, just went up, still doing bad. There's a guy in the front row in a flat bill. I just remember the flat bill being black. I don't know what the sports team was. He looked at me. I don't think he knew what I was doing. He just knew that I was trying something else. And I swear to you, I'll never forget. Hand goes up. He looks at me. I look at him and he goes, and he just shakes his head no. And as he does that, I just easily lower it and reholster it and commence eating shit. Like, it was the worst. Like, I'm so sweaty. And then at which point I announce the next comic coming up. He goes up and just obviously levels. Like, I've built more tension than a psychologist knows what to deal with. And this was the weirdest. And I've never felt this to this day. You know, you go back to the green room and there's usually comics there to rib you. And there's like, dude, what the? Nobody. When I got back there, I was like, I knew it was bad. And I'm just like freaking out. And the guy, the owner, Bob, he's the only one back there. And I was like, it's not good.
This is not
when
good.
The guy's back. And he goes, do you enjoy your little TED talk? And I was like, hey man, can you give me a minute? And he goes, oof. And I was like, hey, seriously. I was like, I'm having a panic attack right now. And he goes, that's not what I saw on the video. I was like, that's not the video I would have sent. Like, I hope you're not going to send that to anybody. And he goes, you're not going to do that tomorrow, are you? And I was like, dude, I did not plan to do that tonight. Like, to be honest, like, all of this is uncomfortable. Like, I don't. And then, yeah, man, he was like, well, if you can, try to do better. And I was like, what the fuck? Like this, I
didn't want to do bad tonight.
Dude, I wanted more than, and I know this sounds very dark. I wanted more than anything for someone to be so upset with what I did that they just shot me. Shot me. And people would be like, that's bad, but I don't think it was that bad. And then there'd be a couple of people who's like, no, they helped him. And like, I was just nervous the whole week. And I started readjusting. And I realized like I had been working on newer stuff that was like vulnerable to who I was. And I just started going back to old stuff that I wasn't terribly proud of, but I knew worked. And my act progressively got better. And it was so bad. Like I felt like a special little boy, because at one point Bob gave me a little slip and he had drawn a smiley face on it. And I was like, this is fucking goddamn. I mean, that means this is terrible. I feel like this is a Make-A-Wish. And like, it's terrifying. And
wow.
Yeah. I spent the whole time in a pre-manic state, just like vibrating, because I didn't know what was going on in Jersey. God, it was so bad. And then this is where it clutches. You get paid 30 days after the fact. So that's how the casino would run. So at one point they were like, do you want to draw? And I was like, I mean, I can wait. And she's like, I'd really like you to take a draw. At least you got some money to get home. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And so I took $200 out. And it wasn't, they filed bankruptcy. 2 weeks later. I mean, that was it. They got me for like $750 unpaid. Once you file bankruptcy, nobody's getting paid.
Yeah. Yep.
Nobody else on mine got paid. There were also 3 more weeks of comics. One which I think might have been Sam Morril, and I think they got him for like 23. Like it's
wow.
When that happens, and what I started to feel like inside my soul was like, yeah, I was going through tough times, but also my body was like had a gut feeling that was like, hey, we're getting screwed.
Something's not right.
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was the worst. To this day, like I'm sweating.
I know.
Thinking
I
about
just watching you tell the story.
Yeah,
and you're like,
it was worse. And I mean, it wasn't.
But-
It genuinely, I don't feel like was the material. I feel like I could have sold the material had I had any level of confidence. But all that just went down.
Yeah. And it's amazing how, like with comedy, confidence is very important. Too.
Yeah.
Because also, we've, and it's come up a lot on this podcast because it's obviously a thing that you need to do comedy, but the crowd can see if you're confident or not. And
Right.
when you're not confident, they don't believe in you. If you're not,
100.
if you don't believe in yourself and have that confidence, the crowd does not have that for you either.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to necessarily go on this journey with you.
Absolutely. And also, like, if you're, for example, if you're like a unique person or you're doing something that's slightly different and unique to yourself, they might not laugh right up front because they may not understand what's going on until they get on your boat. And so if you crumble under that pressure early on, you didn't give them a chance to kind of like you.
You just took the chainsaw out and cut your boat in half.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
The last thing you hear is it's just salute to Army of Darkness.
Yeah. I love it.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's wow. And so I know you said it, you kind of had a couple back to back with that. I mean, obviously, throughout the weekend you got better or whatever, but like when you went to Boston, were you still kind of feeling that way? Or was it
Boston
just
was
like...
amazing because I was at the Wilbur Theater.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
I was asked if I wanted to open, and I didn't want to be rude because I'd been added to the show, and I was like, I'd prefer to maybe go second. And it was because I'd had these triggers from the last few shows, and just leveled. I mean, 12 to 15 minutes just leveling at the Wilbur, and it was like this is what I was working towards.
Yeah,
like
this is the validation I need and redemption.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but yeah, the Tropicana in New Jersey will always be my Vietnam.
Yeah, I can tell.
And there are other
wow.
comics that did that show that like old road dogs that had done it, and they're like, oh, because I sent a picture one time from the condo. And I can't remember who it was, but they were like, oh, I've spent a lot of nights looking out at that water, wondering.
But that's comedy at a lot of casinos.
Right,
I mean, it's just, you just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Even when they have, when it's like its own comedy club at a casino, you never know what you're going to get for a crowd, too.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's in Vegas, you know what I mean? Because like a lot of the clubs in Vegas, they're tourists and they're like, oh, I'm going to a cool comedy show in Vegas and I'm making it a thing. But a lot of these other casinos that do comedy, a lot of the tickets they just give away, and it's the people that come to these shows are people that are sad because they lost all their money and they have nothing else to do.
That's dude. Side note, I don't know why there's nothing worse than like eating it and hearing slot machines go off.
I know.
And like just someone hitting a jackpot or something. I did a bowling alley somewhere in Wisconsin a long time ago, and it was going well. And then I don't know what I went into something, and it just took a dip. And while it was taking a dip, I'd hit like 2 or 3 different lines where it lulled, and I was like, ah. And then someone bowled a strike, and there was all this racket. And when I tell you, Dan, 95% of the audience turned and looked that way and then looked back at me, and we were like, yeah, we know where the gutter ball is. It's up here. Like, we know they're having fun. Like, there's nothing worse than hearing everyone have a good time and then just looking around going, why aren't we doing that?
Should we get up now? Would it be rude to go bowl?
Can we throw him?
Can we use him as the bowling ball?
Right.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, this has been a great conversation. I don't know how much time you have, but if you want to tell one of your other stories, I would love to do that. Or
yeah, I mean, I'll tell a short one. I'll tell you the
Yeah.
one that happened before I went to Winston-Salem. That happened and I may have told this a couple of times on different podcasts, but this one is just embarrassing. And so I was at the Looney Bin in Little Rock, and we were doing a triple feature. And I'd been going through the club for a while. And look, the triple features can be fun depending on the situation. Like, and by that I mean you're in a condo with 3 guys or 2 guys and a girl, whatever. And what happens is sometimes a comic will get it in their head that no matter what happens, they have to be the number one comic the whole weekend, and they're going to get to headline, which is not how it is. They do these triple features because they know all 3 people have the capability of headlining, but they're not going to push out one of their people, so they're giving people opportunities.
Yeah,
and then
probably saving a little bit of money.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because you're still getting they're paying 3 features.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
And but you rotate, so you get an opening, you get a mid, and then the closer.
Yeah,
and everyone's doing basically the same amount of time. And so I'd had a couple of good shows, and they'd been light. Now, the first show, I think it was Saturday night, it's sold out. The energy is insane. And all I want to do is crush. And I have this story. Probably, let's say, it can be about a 10-minute run. And there's all sorts of like twists and turns. But the epic part about it was it starts with the line, oh, that's because you're living your life wrong. And then at the end of it, it comes right back to where I go, oh, that's because you're living your life wrong. And you realize that I'm talking about me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you that just so that you're going to understand in a minute. Even people that don't like the joke, at some point, like the callback and the sneakiness, and they understand the writing, it still ends up as an applause. And they're like, we appreciate it, even though it didn't appeal to us. The guy goes up before me. And I'm not going to name drop. He had been a bit difficult in the condo, which wasn't. And I was already, this is the beginning of my mania. And the person was mad because I had taken the large room because I was the first person to get to the condo. I didn't care, but it was already this like odd trying to out alpha people, and I'm like, dude, let's just fucking stop. So he goes up and just obliterates the room with, funny stuff, easy, dirty stuff, but just like somewhat low-hanging fruit. Just destroying. And I was like, all right. And then I'm going to go up, and the story I was telling you about is something that a lot of times I close with because it's long. And so I was like, oh, is that what you're going to do? All right. I'll open with this. And they'll see it, and then I'll figure out the rest. I'm opening with something that is typically 10 minutes. I think I did about 7. Like, that's how long it took because I was moving so quickly. I started, and I was maybe like 2 minutes in. And nothing. Again, I'm getting nothing. And I can't figure out what it is. And I feel like maybe it's me, maybe it's my energy. But I get around the 7-minute mark, and I go, that's because you're living your life wrong, dude. And that's usually where it pops, and I'll get the relief. No relief.
Oh, no.
And even worse, the guy in the front had seen me before. He was wearing one of my T-shirts. And he was a regular at the club. He had a cowboy hat on, and I will never forget. He kind of stood up. He stood up and kind of took his hat off, and like made it a point to everyone that he was thinking. And then he shook his head and just went, "That's just a long way to go, man."
Oh no!
That's it. And I just went, ah, like nobody else, 200 and some odd people, no one else, nothing. And he just goes, "That's just a long way to go." And that got a little bit of a laugh, and I went, "Fuck." And so I commenced to spend the rest of my set trying to dig out of the hole. And I got some chuckles, but it wasn't my best set. And then the guy came on behind me and just murdered. And dude, you just feel like garbage.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when it's one thing, you already feel bad when you bomb or the set doesn't go the way you want it.
Yeah.
But then when you have an interaction like that with somebody either during or after where they have to they just, put salt on the wound.
Yeah, well, with that I went, you're wearing you were a fan. And I had the absolute fear that I would see him after the show and he would have it buttoned up or turned on inside out.
Honestly, I thought you were going to say when he took off his hat, he just casually put it in front of his shirt. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No, that would have been the best. He just covered the image and put his head down.
And then said that.
Yeah, that's just a long way to go. Shame on me.
I was just
it felt so bad.
Oh man,
yeah. And I don't believe it was that night, but still that week I remember. Maybe it wasn't, but I just remember also fans, not even fans, but audience members don't make it any better in certain areas. And Little Rock, it's kind of the South, but they'll just tell you they didn't like it, and you got to eat that.
Ooh.
I don't know why I stood out there with merch. I shouldn't have been there. And they were like, dude, one of the funniest people I've ever seen. I can't. And then the next guy, I can't believe you. I hope you come back. I'm right next to these two people. And the guy gets to me and he just goes, comedy's tough. And I went, I heard the other two things you said.
That's like when they come up to after a show and make it even worse. And they're like, well, God, some of you are funny. And then they walk away. So it's you don't know, but you know.
Yeah. Or this one's my favorite. I thought you were funny. I thought you were fun. And I'm like, that means you know that nobody else enjoyed it and you don't want me to kill myself tonight. I know what you're saying.
This is just your sympathy and you hope that I come back.
Yeah.
Because I'm not dead.
I would be almost more comfortable if they came up and go, you ruined my night. You just ruined it. Almost. Thank gosh for these two guys because you just ruined it. I would feel more comfortable with that.
Right? Oh, just that brutal
I liked
honesty.
it.
Have you ever did a show where it was so bad you didn't go out and sell merch? Because I've actually done that where I'm like, they don't like me. I don't even pitch it.
Yeah.
I'll have it with me and I'll just decide, you know what? This ain't going well. I can tell I'm not their cup of tea. There's no way in hell they're going to come buy my merch after this show.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to not bother.
I have done that. I've also had weird situations where I had a show where it was great and I set up merch and I sold very little.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have a show where you're like, it's all right. And then you sell a bunch and you're like, oh, this was just a crowd that isn't boisterous about their joy.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Definitely. I've definitely ran into that too, where you have that, where you think you're not going to do well on the merch.
Right.
And then they just, this is the greatest show.
Yeah, and you're like, I was really bad about this. And I openly apologized to anyone that I did this to early on. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was just being genuinely honest. I would do shows and I would feel bad about it. I would get off and be like, that wasn't a good show.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you feel that way. And then people go, oh man, it was such a good show. I'm so glad. And you go, yeah. I was like, come back and see a good one. And I would, I was in my, and I didn't realize, I'm telling that person unintentionally that they don't know shit about comedy. Yep. And it wasn't until later on in life, I watched this interview with Jerry Garcia and he was talking about recording albums and he would go, the music's it's fucked. And then they would go back and listen to it later and it was great and they would release it. And he goes, at that moment, I realized it matters to me how I feel because I'm feeling it. But that has no grounds on the perception of what the audience thinks or what is actually there. Our perception is completely skewed because typically we're so hard on ourselves. So we stumble over a line and you hear that invasive voice go, idiot. And you go, thanks, Dad.
Exactly.
Thanks for popping in there.
Well, and even if you have situations too where maybe you don't fumble over a line. Maybe you just skip a line and you don't tell the joke the way you normally would or something.
Right.
You just whatever. You mess something up inside your head. You know you messed up. The crowd has no idea you messed up.
Yeah.
And you still feel bad and get in and same thing. It's like, oh, well, come to a better show. And they're like,
no, this was great.
what are you talking about?
Yeah. I've had situations too where like you can see a comic watching you, and it took me a long time. Like they're not laughing. And I was like, and I'm like, oh, wait, they're watching my process and they're trying to figure out what the formula is. And that can be hard.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, I feel like, why comics a lot of times sit at the back of the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, because they don't want to be noticed. When I go to shows too, sometimes like I went to a show and I wasn't on the show. It was like a showcase thing. I just went to support a friend of mine from South Dakota was in town, and one of their friends was on the show, so I met up with them, and of course they sat in the front row, and they wanted me to sit with them, and I sat with them, but I was just like, oh, I hate sitting in the front row as a comedian, and especially when you're in an area where people don't necessarily know you're a comedian, because every damn time a comic, they'll like pick on you or whatever, and they'll be like, well, what do you do? And you don't want to say it, but you kind of have to. It's like, I'm a comedian. And then, and they're like, oh, are you? And they'll try to like start roasting you. And it's just like, oh, I actually had that happen to me one time in LA and this was like early on when I was doing comedy. It was just a bar showcase thing. And I try to be supportive. So when I would go to shows, I would sit. If the front wasn't filled, I wanted to be supportive and go up there. And so I would sit close to the front. And this is part of the reason I stopped not wanting to do this. But it was funny. So a comic was up on stage, and they just kept heckling me and playing with me and whatever. And I was just like, oh, just not into it. And then I get called up on stage for my set, and I saw the look on their face when they realized I was a comic too. Yeah. And they were just like, oh. And then they left. Yeah. But it was just so weird to me.
Well, because there's nothing you can do. Like, as a comic, there should be some sort of code word where they just go, hey, what do you do? And you just go, I know you're out of material. Like, like if you just said, I know you're out of material, they go, oh, this is a comic. Okay. Because very rarely do you go in the crowd when it's working.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right on that. And yes, that would make things so much easier just to be like, move on. Yeah. Have that code so they know to move to somebody else. Because also, like, back then, I didn't want to respond with, well, I'm a comic. And, because sometimes that it seemed like it would be kind of egotistic and then whatever. And I just wanted to try to be a nice audience member when I was sitting up front, and be polite and respectful to their time. Because this is their time to be on stage. I'll get my time, when it's my turn or whatever. And I want to be polite on that. But it's like, oh, I also don't want you to talk to me because I'm a comic too. Right. You're making me uncomfortable.
So weird. What do you do? I'm going to be following you in 3 spots.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm after you.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. I'm waiting to go up.
We trade spots next. Is this a gym situation? You working out material?
Yeah, it's so awkward. So now, if I can prevent it, I try not to sit in the front. But kind of going back to what you're talking about with comics sitting in the back and then not laughing while they're watching, because I absolutely think you're right on that about their analyzing and watching, because that's something I do. And I just had a conversation about this with somebody else on another podcast where we were talking about, like, they're not a comedian, but they've been in the comedy industry through like radio programming and stuff for like 30 some years, and they've seen a lot of comedy. And we were talking about how when you're in the business and the industry, it's not as easy to go in and you're not going to be laughing out loud, not because you don't think the jokes are not funny, but because we're back there analyzing it technically. Right. We're like, oh, we're in our heads watching the performer, and they're like, oh, you see them do this setup and then there's punchline, and you're like, oh, that was a really good joke because they set it up like this, and that misdirect was just nobody saw that, so we're in our heads analyzing this.
And that, I feel like that goes, and it gets forgotten a lot, but that goes without any profession. If you're a tire guy, right? Like your thing is tires and you know tires and you go to a car show, they're going to be like, what do you think about this? And you go, it needs new tires. Like you just,
you just know. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
you're hyper focused on the thing you know the most about.
Yep.
I've heard a lot of people talk about that, like guitar players, they go and see a musician and they're just watching the scale runs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think too with that, going back to comedy, one thing for me to, and this is something because of that, like being in the profession, I could see somebody go up and do a joke, and to me, it's not I don't think it's a great joke. It doesn't. It's not that it's not a great joke. It just doesn't hit me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like for me, I'm not. It's just not my cup of tea. But the whole audience is just in stitches laughing at this joke, and I can look at that and be like, well, it wasn't for me, but I totally understand why this crowd liked that. I seen what the comic did. I see how he set it up. I see how, you know, they did whatever. I totally understand why the crowd likes it.
Right.
Even though I don't. I
Right.
can totally get it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I can appreciate it, even though I'm like, I couldn't do that. Like, for some reason, I have a very specific formula in my head, and it just isn't always the same as a lot of other people. Because I will watch people do something, and I'm like, okay. I mean, it works. That's great.
Yep.
I don't understand it. Or I've been in the business long enough now to go, is that too easy? Is that too simple? And that, you know, sometimes you just got to wash that out.
Well, and sometimes the simplest jokes are the ones that people laugh the hardest at.
yeah.
And that's one thing that has always betrayed me about comedy, even in my own comedy.
Yeah.
Where I'll, you know, I'm more of a storytelling comic, very similar to you.
Yeah.
You do a lot of storytelling and stuff. And I'm more of a storyteller, and I'll think of these like stories, and I'll work on trying to make it funny here and put all this effort into it, and then I'll just have some dumb random thought of a quick one-liner, and you know, you go up and you do this long, intricate story joke that has a callback and all the things that should make it just a brilliant joke, and the crowd just does not respond, and then you say that one dumb thing that you thought about, and they just die.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the funniest thing you've ever said. And I'm like, I hate this.
Yeah. It's so weird. It's so weird. It's such a wild business.
It is. Absolutely. Well, we're going to start kind of wrapping up a little bit.
Yeah.
Couple quick questions. When you're on stage and then you're in that moment where you feel like you're starting to bomb or lose the audience in that moment, what goes through your head, and how do you try to deviate to try to win the crowd back?
Oh, so like recently, not like back then.
Well, even I mean,
so back then, like I feel like I'm better at it now. I'm a little bit more comfortable in my own skin. Like I'd gone into something a few weeks ago, and I had 2 jokes up front that worked really well, and then I went into something that I think the material was fine. It just wasn't a topic they wanted to hear. And so at that point, I just went, I don't think you guys are really digging on this right now. So, just going to change gears. And sometimes my personality and character on stage and demeanor will allow me to do that. And I have a couple of jokes that I know will work if I have the time. So I just went into that, and I was able to get them back. And sometimes that feels better to me if I can lose them. I like to get them and then lose them almost completely if I'm trying to find out if something is bulletproof.
Oh, that's a really smart technique to really, really see how well a joke is working.
Yeah. If you have something that you consider a closer, get them to a point where they've not laughed at like 3 or 4 of your punchlines, or they're about to give up, and then go into that and see if you can reel back the chatter back into you, and you know it's a solid joke.
Wow, that's an amazing trick.
I used to eat it so much at open mics in Kansas City. Like I had a friend that he told a guy who owns a club now, he goes, I don't understand how AJ gets work. He goes, I see him all the time down here, and he eats it almost every night. And he goes, yeah, but you don't know what he's doing. Like I wanted to know what it felt like to eat it, because you have to know that feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I was doing well on the road and like showcases and stuff like that, but
so you were just like going and eating it on purpose just to stay humble.
No, it's not. Yeah, well, kind of,
just
but
to
not
keep
even
you a
so
little
much
bit grounded.
Almost. Well, to keep from spiraling when it happened.
Oh,
that was I felt like an open mic should
building the endurance.
Right, because an open mic should be like a gym or a training ground,
Absolutely.
Right? So if I knew my material worked, now I had to figure out, okay, what do I do when it's not working? Like when the plane is going down, how do I keep from killing everybody? And sometimes I would start to nosedive it. And when I started to pull it up, I'd get the light and I wouldn't pull it. And then I'd have to wear that while people walked out. And it sucked.
Yeah.
But I think that is for anyone that's a comic that's out there, I mean, it's a bulletproof way to start to get your skin thick.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and it's like you said, excuse me, and to test out a joke to see how good it is. Because you're absolutely right. If you're losing the crowd and you do a joke or a bit and it brings them right back, you've got a solid joke.
Yeah,
right
I mean,
there.
if you got 12 of those, you have a gold album.
Absolutely. I would like to talk about a little bit too about your writing process, just a little bit, because you're more of a storytelling comic. So what's the writing process for you? Do you sit down and write, or how do you kind of develop your material?
So, the writing or the note taking, the actual long form writing comes later. Sometimes an idea will pop in my head when I'm like free form writing. But a lot of times either I stumble on something on stage or like when I'm running, that's when I find it. Like when I'm completely hyper focused on something, I will usually then start to work out an idea. Something hits, something happens, and then there's a little bit of inspiration. And then I'll take that and I'll basically milk it for all it's worth and then figure out of that what will and won't work. And there's a lot of crash in the car in that process. But I'm a pacer and a ranter in that way when I'm starting to build something, and a repeater. So it's like, gosh, I mean, if I had video of that, it just looks like an insane person, I'm sure. Because I'll just wander around my house, just like Rain Man, just repeating the same stuff. And then I'll go, oh, because I want to hear phonetically what it sounds like to me. Because in the time I've done it, I feel like I know if this isn't going to work phonetically, how is it going to hit? Like, where's the poetry to this?
Yeah.
Like, where's the rhythm? And I can't get that when I'm just putting pen to paper to start. It feels very stale or sterile to me. But then once I have it down, then I'll start to fine tune it, and then I'll start asking other people for stuff. Where it's like, hey, do you see anything I don't? And go from there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, myself, my brain, and my body at first, and then the collaboration of outside people. But that's it. But as far as actual writing, I mean, most of my stuff is free form. Like,
yeah, you just. But do you
brain
give
drains.
Yourself time to write? Like, are you disciplined in that way where you're like, okay, I'm gonna for 15 minutes a day, I'm gonna free write, or how?
So I've openly admitted that I've slipped a lot in the past few years. But yeah, for the longest time, it was every day. Like, I was keeping a journal, and sometimes it was philosophical. Sometimes it was just stuff that didn't make sense. Sometimes it was just affirmations. Mm-hmm. And then every now and again, it would just be like a joke. And then it would follow several lines of me just going, that won't work. Stop doing it. Why are you doing this?
You're letting the voice out.
Yeah. So, but I do love that, like that moment of writing. I used to try to do 3 pages in the morning. And usually by the time I would start into like 3 lines of the second page, there was this, it almost was like the writing was just happening. And then I became an observer. So it's pretty neat.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's for anybody that sits down and writes like that, like is disciplined, even in the free writing, I'm like, good for you. I wish I need to get more disciplined about it. I start journals and I'll do really good for like short periods of time, and then I'll quit.
Yeah, I think what happened to me was if I don't note something or at least document it somehow, I've lost so many jokes that probably had legs over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I could see where that would happen.
Yeah.
And I could kind of going back to what you're talking about where you do the pacing and saying the material and stuff.
Yeah.
I get caught all the time in public because I'm in my head a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily talk out loud, but I'll like talk it out in thoughts.
Yeah.
And then suddenly my body just starts moving with the tongue. So like my mouth starts moving, but I'm not saying anything. So I do look like a crazy person just like talking to myself.
Yeah.
And not even audibly. I'm just like.
Oh, yeah.
And
they're
Tara,
looking for a
my
Bluetooth.
Fiance all the time is like, are you saying something? Like, did you say something? I was like, no. And she's like, your mouth is moving.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
When I first started doing stand-up, I had worked at UPS loading trucks.
Yep.
And I was in a truck by myself, and I was working on a bit for like an open mic thing. And it was late night. And I mean, I was always kind of a rowdy person at work anyway. Full blown, like in a trailer by myself, loading and just untethered, like just working the bit out. And when I turned around, my boss at the time, pale, did not know what to do. And I was like, hey man, what's up? And I, genuine concern, he went, who you talking to? And when I put that together, I was like, I'm not crazy. And they're like, all right, yeah. I'm working on bits.
I'm working on what's going to save me from this job. I'm working on the dream to get me out of this truck.
Never forget the terrifying look on his face when he just went, who you talking to? And then I was like, if I'd have said, Randy, my friend here, what would you have done?
Yeah,
like,
right.
That's where I regret not having the foresight to just go, him?
And just mess with
Yeah,
him.
just have him go, I'll be back. We'll be waiting.
Oh, man, this has been great. I could talk to you for hours. This has just been a fun conversation, but we better wrap up.
Okay.
Couple last things. We talk about bombing and put you through that.
Yeah.
So I like to go out positive. What's been one of your favorite or best gigs that you've done in your career? One of your favorites?
Yeah, I will say most notably right now, this might sound weird, but this year I did a show at the Well in Trinidad, Colorado. And it was one of the funnest shows I did. Like the people were amazing. The jokes were landing the way I wanted them. I was comfortable. It just, those moments where you go, this is what I want. Like, no matter what had happened prior, this is what feeds the addiction.
Yeah. All the pieces came together for that puzzle.
And it also just felt like talking to people afterwards, I felt a kinship to everyone there. Like, yeah. It was one of those moments where the show felt so good where I was like, I'm going to move here now. I'm going to live here.
This is going to be my people.
Yeah, you're my people now.
I love it. All right, last question. We have the Art of Bombing Get Pumped playlist. It doesn't have to be a song that gets you pumped for comedy. It's just a song that gets you pumped for whatever. Maybe it gets you pumped to go run, exercise, write. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Man, so... one that's been happening a lot lately is LCD Sound Systems. Daft Punk is playing at your house, or playing at my house, I think. Yeah, Daft Punk is playing at my house. My house. Yeah, and that one, much like when I'm pacing, it's just so repetitive, and the hook and the beat is so good that... yeah, I feel like I can conquer the world sometimes.
I love it. Well, that'll be added to the playlist.
Awesome.
This has been fantastic. Where can people find AJ Finney and all your stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at AJ_Finney. AJ Finney at Facebook. You can also find all my dates and information at www.ajfinney.com. If you're on Bands in Town, you can follow me. I've got a profile there. And you can hear me weekly every Wednesday at 5 a.m. with my co-host Zach Moss on Hippie Not Hippie podcast, the Hippie Not Hippie podcast.
Excellent. So. All right. Yeah. And then you have an album coming out later this year.
Yeah. So right now it's planned for July release. It's tentatively called Too Fast for Rain. And I'm super excited about it.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this.
Dan, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
This has been a Dan Bublitz comedy production. Roar.